what's up everyone? Morey Croson here, and welcome back to our newest edition of the Morey Myles podcast. I took a little bit of a break from doing these podcasts, but I'm really excited to get back to it, and we are starting off. I actually did this podcast back in, I want to say July, maybe August, with Coach Nick Mosich. He is a good friend of mine. I actually met him when we were both at the factory. He's moved on since then, as have I. He's now a strength and conditioning coach at Santa Monica College, as well as does a lot of great training with his sprinting. I know he, just like me, is someone that's very passionate about this subject and is always working on his own individual speed. There's a lot of great topics that we go over in this podcast, so I'm really excited for you guys to be able to listen, learn, take notes, and we'll go ahead and get right into it.
What's up, guys? I'm Coach Nick Mosich. Give you a little background on myself. Thank you, Morey, for having me.
Yeah, of course.
So, a little background on myself. I'm entering my 9th season as a strength and conditioning coach. I'm 2 years down at Pierce College, right down the street here, and I'm into my 7th season as head strength coach for the Santa Monica College football team. One of the big things that I've really started to shift to, especially with COVID giving me a little extra time to get into my studies, is more down the side of speed things, right? I'm a strength and conditioning coach, so I've been in strength for a while. But me and my coworker down at Santa Monica College, we've gone way deep into the speed stuff.
And that's something that I definitely have found a very similar passion for is speed. I mean, obviously when we were at the factory, we both had a passion for this industry, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it seems like almost like after we separated, or after you went to a different place, that you got a lot more passion for it and I got a lot more passion for it. And unfortunately, we didn't get to vibe on it all together, which is why you're here, because we want to be able to do that here. So, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you want to go into with the background, but I'm excited just because I think it's going to be really cool to get a different lens, right, like we kind of talked about. And there's a lot of things that I talk about on my channel, a lot of things that are specific to how I word things, how I talk about things, how I do things, and we've already went into it a little bit, just back and forth, just trying to figure out exactly how we want to be able to make this work for the individual. And already he was like, some cues that I could use that could maybe be different, that maybe help people out, which is exactly why I think this could be extra valuable, because some of the things that I consistently talk about or consistently am bringing up, maybe Nick can come and say the same thing, different way, different focus, different ideology, which can end up giving you guys a lot more results.
Let's go straight into the foot. So,
okay.
How do we want to start this? You want to tell me?
Do you want to go start? Do you want to go, we talked about drive phase. We want to get into drive phase. We want to get into the main concept that we can go into to kind of talk about from the beginning is just like the landing, right? Yeah. So one of the main things I'm always saying with athletes, and really this is throughout the race to me, or throughout the running cycle, is as we're toeing off, we want to get into immediate dorsiflexion, right? So as fast as we can, we want to get into dorsiflexion and then pull back, trying to create plantar flexion down into the ground, landing in more towards the ball of our feet if possible, and with the foot as much underneath our hip and looking more from the side here, with the foot as much underneath the hip as possible. So I don't know if there's anything else that you kind of cue or want to get into from there.
I'm going to keep this very, very simple as far as cueing goes. Try to make this as simplified as possible so the average listener can pick up as much as possible as they go through this. Before I go into any of this kind of stuff, I need to make sure that I give credit to who kind of brought all this stuff to the surface, and that's Darian Barr. 90% of what you're going to be hearing today comes from his work, so if you haven't seen that guy, definitely go check that guy out. This is right in his wheelhouse. So I just want to make sure that I give credit out there before I start going into some of the little secrets here. So when you're talking about landing, right, the biggest thing I'm looking for is how fast can I get off that foot. Mm-hmm. Okay, so some people will talk push, some people will talk dorsiflex, stiff ankle, hit it hard. Those are all things that I've learned in my journey in strength and conditioning, but they're not things that I use a whole lot anymore at all. So big thing I look for on landing is, can my toes spread and can I lift my pinky toe to get myself into the next step?
When you're landing, is there a certain part of your foot that you want to be hitting on the ground there?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are looking for the inside part of your foot to be hitting.
Okay, inside edge.
Yeah, inside edge. And again, that's an Darian Barr thing. He'll talk inside edge a lot. And we're talking inside edge. That's if you cut the foot in half, it's the inside part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so how do you get there, right? Because so for me, and just to give you an idea, I don't think Nick obviously watches as much of my stuff as I do. So and maybe probably a lot of you guys as well. So the kind of my audience is going to be more of a detailed oriented group, right?
Okay.
So it's not going to be very many of like the general, just like, you know, somebody just stumbling by on a speed video. They know what they need to do, but they're struggling to get there.
Right.
And I want to be able to be somebody, because I was in that situation as well.
Yeah.
And to many people I've talked about, that's, you know, something I always say is like, I got into this journey. I was saying, you know, I want to learn how to get faster.
Yeah.
How do I learn how to get faster? You know, how do I get to be able to run like how Usain Bolt runs, right? And being able to go down that path gave me a lot less satisfaction, right? You can go like how to run faster, how to improve your speed, and you get a bunch of general videos about like pump your arms fast, you know, move your legs quickly, land on the balls of your feet. That's great, you know, that information isn't bad, but it's not like, okay, how though? And I am like running on the balls of my feet, but I'm only running 18 miles an hour. Like how come Trayvon Bromell is running 24 and Fred Curley and all those guys? So just getting into that like separator, and we go into like what kind of separates you know, some of the average athletes or average sprinters into the top sprinters, and maybe even connecting into what made it so you went from where you were and then got you into like a whole nother level of speed.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's two different ways I could go about it from here then. So we can either go a simple drill to kind of communicate the point that I'm trying to get across, or I can literally, you know, kind of talk you through as you hit the ground. What do you think is going to be?
We can maybe do a little bit of both,
Okay. So the first thing I like to teach people with that concept of the inside edge, I'm going to use you as my example here. Go ahead and get onto one foot, okay? And then hover the other one right in front of you there, okay? Now, before we do anything, I want you to spread that pinky toe as far as you can on the down leg to the right. So spread it right. And you really don't want to sit there.
I'm not great with my pinky toe opening up there.
Yeah, so now let's try this. Pinky toe out, big toe extension.
Like up?
Yep. And that's the magic spot right there. So now, what I want you to do is keep this bent knee position. I don't want you to push through this. I want you to pull this foot up and try to land on that same spot on the other side.
Ooh. Okay.
Try it again. Switch it back. And then one of the cues you can use is, as you flip it, spread the pinky toes.
It's easier as you do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yes. And it's interesting because before we got on this talk, we talked a little bit. Right, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about big toe extension, right?
Yeah.
That's a hard part. That drill right there has given me the most success with getting it not to essentially flex and claw the floor. Right?
Yeah.
So that's when we talked a little bit on the phone the other day. We're like, let's get into toe off, right? I don't like the word toe off.
Really?
Right? Because that's going to tell you to push off the toe.
Well, see, that's what the reason I use toe off is because I don't want to talk about pushing at all. I want you to think about just get your toe off the ground. Don't push off the ground, just get your toe off the ground.
Interesting. I don't think most people are thinking about, that's not how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, because like I used to say push off.
Yeah.
You know, like when your toe push off, and then I started realizing like, no, that's like, I don't like that cue because you don't want to be pushing.
Right.
You just want your toe to come off.
Right.
You know, like get your toe off the ground.
Right.
You know, toe off.
Right.
That's why I just say that.
Well, and it makes more sense now as you say that to me in person. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. So I would say that's a better cue for sure. But let's try this just for to kind of feel that, right? So I want you to come over here. I might be out of the frame right now, but he's going to go into the frame. I want you to just walk across, and every time you take a step, lift the big toenail.
Okay. Of your big, so just your big toe at liftoff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you guys are watching there, maybe you can zoom that in later. What this creates is it creates like a rocking chair motion kind of effect.
Yeah.
And if you go into like, I don't want to get too far outside of what we're talking about right now. Oh, perfect. There we go.
We grab the shoes.
Some people would say this is a terrible shoe. what do you think about this shoe? I mean, it's your shoe.
Yeah, I mean, I like wearing it. I think we've talked about shoes in the past.
Yeah.
But I like wearing a wide variety of types of shoes just to be able to make it so my foot has a lot of different response to it. I like this shoe for a lot of reasons. One of the main ones is because with the heel being the way that it is, it kind of gives me this feeling like I'm a little bit more here all the time. And so I want to be a little bit more like forward, right? Like some of the other shoes, especially, I don't really know what the name of them are, but like the shoes.
Hokas?
Or not, I mean, I primarily only wear Nikes, but the ones that have like more of like the bubbles around them.
That's the Zooms.
Yeah, like the Zoom stuff like that. Those ones make me feel like I'm more like stuck in the ground because like you get that absorption. So you're like here, where this one makes me feel like I'm a little bit more here on my toe. And you know, and I'm like when you look at sprinters, it seems like they're just like here a lot. You know, they're just like ready to get off the ground. So.
That's it. I love everything that you just said there. Because go back, what, 5 years ago when we met? When did we meet?
I don't know.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. But anyways, I was like religious about these flat bad boys right here. I just happen to be wearing these today. I'm in the same line of thought now. I vary my shoes as much as I can. This is good for being able to feel the bottom of your feet. This is better for creating that rocking chair motion that I was just kind of talking about. We talked about big toe extension. When the toe is not touching the ground in a shoe, it's going to extend. It's not going to flex, right? Yeah. So this is actually, for a while, I was, dogging on Nike a bunch and like, someone knows what they're doing at the top. For sure, right?
Exactly.
So, anyways, that's a little sidebar with that. But those kinds of shoes create that rocking chair motion. Hokas is the one that I just said. Like, everyone's like, what are those big space shoes? I'm like, yeah, like maybe the padding is a little thick, that's a little aggressive, but the motion it's creating is very biomechanically sound, for sure.
I like it.
Yeah.
But we're here, right? We're going into the start, so a little more side here. And we have dorsiflexion, okay? And when we're doing this, we want to have some internal rotation at the hip. But essentially, as that foot is coming back down underneath, we want to be able to maintain pronation in the ankle, right? So that's going to be more of that big toe side going down, and try to eliminate any type of supination, because I see people as they're hitting the ground, they're about to hit, and they end up here on the toe, right? And then what happens when you hit here with the toe is that then you're going to get into pronation, and then you're going to end up having to toe off. And especially within the start, and Nick already alluded to this, it's least amount of time on the ground as possible.
Yep.
So if we can get you to be able to understand, to be able to land more pronated, right, with that more inside part of the foot, like where he's talking about, where you want to be landing, it makes it so then you could land and be able to accelerate off more effectively. One of the things that I recently realized from watching video is that I think it helps when you're going more, again, internal rotation of the hip, and then when you land, you absorb through external rotation of the hip to take some of the pressure off of the ankle, right? Because I'll see people go here and they land and then they go into dorsiflexion, drop that calcaneus, and then they have to push right back off. Whereas you could land and get more into external rotation of the hip, you can maintain a little bit higher ankle, which then makes it so then you could just push right off from there. So let's go into maybe some better cues or different ways to be able to say that.
Okay, perfect. So that actually is...
Got mosquitoes.
I was like,
my fault. I'm going to be going after mosquitoes the whole time. They love my blood. So.
Apparently they like him. I haven't felt it once.
Yeah, no, they're always all over me. Whatever blood you need to have mosquitoes after you, I have it 100%. I don't even need to get tested, I know.
That's hilarious. All right, so let's go into the side view, kind of where you were at.
Mm-hmm.
So get that foot up into that dorsiflexion, okay? So one of the big things that I work on is not thinking about the leg that's actually working, okay? So what I want him to think about is, okay, so this is crossing the midline right now. He's kind of talking about that. I don't actually force that. I kind of just let it happen. I want you to think about spreading this left pinky toe and switching.
So just here?
Yep. And where did that put you?
On the inside part.
Yep. Good.
So this is a lot balance.
Yeah.
How much do you think balance matters?
Balance matters a little.
How often do you work on balance type stuff?
So it just depends on what you're balancing, right? Like the biggest thing I see with you right there is it's balance, but balance is strength to me, right?
Yeah.
That's what I go back with everything, right? And like looking at that, we need more big toe extension.
Okay.
right? And then the bouncer.
Is there like a certain place that I should have my big toe be able to extend to?
Yeah, that's where it's like, that's why we get into all these debates about like triple extension and toe off and all that kind of stuff, because it's so minute and the timing is really, like again, going back to bars work, it's all timing, right?
Okay.
It's when you hit that point. So what I'm looking for, and I'll show you kind of how I roll through it. I get in here and I'm trying to absorb, right? So we're trying to get away from these push cues. I'm trying to spread and really land on it, right?
Yeah. So you're not lifting your leg up near as high there, which probably makes it a little bit easier.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just to go out with that, I do, you know, I like to use pull. I think the pull is effective,
Okay.
but I never use push. I
Yeah.
don't think push is ever a part of, you know, running.
I used to all the time, and I do not ever,
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
now. It's like the ground is hot lava. You're getting off of it. You're pulling the backside leg through.
Well, I mean, and that ends up being the big issue, right? And the cycle that I'm always trying to help people understand how to get out of. And I don't know if it's just something that you need to develop and learn, because like as I work with people and as they go, it's like the concept that I always say is like, you watch a movie, you know, a movie that you love 4 times, 5 times, whatever, you know, you watch it all the way through, and even 4th time that you watch it, you see a scene that you didn't realize like that happened.
Yeah.
Just watching, just like,
Yeah.
damn, I didn't even realize that,
Yeah.
you know, and how that ended up having a point in the movie, right?
Right,
Even though that was an important part,
Yeah.
you didn't see it, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's the same way in ways for sprinting,
Yeah.
because I know for me personally too, like I've read books multiple times and gotten to a point and been like, damn, I didn't even realize that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, just there's a time where you need to hear something and you're
Right.
ready to hear it and it all makes sense.
Right.
And I apply that same methodology to sprinting, where sometimes I feel like there's just so many things that you can go into and talk about
Right.
that it's not time, where then all of a sudden you'll just see somebody and they'll even say like, okay, I think I got it, I figured it out, you know, like how you said, or how it all, you know, like I figured out what I need to do, right? And
Yeah.
so I've kind of attributed to that in ways where it's just like, you know, they eventually, it hits them,
Yeah.
right? But I also want to be able to give them more of an opportunity to improve it. And the point of what I was trying to say is, like, what happens is there ends up being this time where you end up toeing off with the back foot, and it is a little bit too late, right? Or when the foot hits the ground, there's not enough stability on that first foot contact, which then makes it so then they toe off too late. You know, I don't know which one happens first, the chicken or the egg, but what makes it so then they end up wanting to go here, you know, then makes it so there's more of a vertical landing rather than a horizontal landing, and that it makes it so the cycle ends up being, you know, what it is. Okay, and a lot of times to me, I will get people to get really good at that first step, right, which makes it so they're pretty good on the second step, but then the third step, either the transition to the third step or the landing of the third step, I all the time see the third step not being the great step, right? Or the third or fourth step being the one where it's like, great first 2, third, fourth, kind of started losing it, where now the foot started coming off. So how do you, because, you know, kind of what we're doing here is going, well, the first one we could go outside if we need to, because obviously we're not going to be able to do 3 good steps in here or 4 good steps, but how do you help in being able to correct that?
I think we should go outside for that.
So we're talking really getting into the 3rd, 4th step. Okay, so the common issue, and now we're going to be able to get the more video behind it. The common issue that I had, and the reason it's hard for me to be able to, I think, correct this issue was because something that I always had as like more naturalness to me. Right. I was a lot more of an agility-based athlete.
Yep.
Right. So I was great coming off, like I ran great 5-10-5s, like the lowest I got was like a 405, you know, 5-10-5. So I'm really good at being able to stop, you know, get here, stop, get here, right? And like I can accelerate quickly, like I could do all that.
Yeah.
But my top end wasn't great.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to really change how I was running at my top end speed, right? Because I had really fast turnover, but I wasn't going anywhere when it comes to elite athletes, right? Like I was always fast, you know, like I could beat, you know, normal people. But when it got to like that elite level, I wasn't as good, right? And so this is something that came a lot more natural. So when I see people that are struggling
it's harder for me to be able to help them with it because I didn't have that issue as much, you know. So, you know, if I take it back to quarterback, like a lot of the things that I talk about with the wrist, it's a lot easier for me to be able to explain it and connect to people because I had to teach myself how to connect or correct it, so I can like understand the differences. But with this, it's like a little bit harder because I can't like fully conceptualize like why can't you get this? Like it's very simple to me, you know. So that's where some of that frustration comes into play. And yeah, I want to just be able to address it and fix it as possible.
I'm like smiling as he talks to me about this because I've gone through these same kind of frustrations, and it's I've never been an elite level or close to elite level sprinter. I'm more elite level on the strength side for sure, but now I'm like, I am way faster than I was 10 years ago. And
I'm sure you have like an elite level start at least.
Well, and that's what I was going to get to is I've always gotten off the line well, right? That was always my thing, right? But then my whole life, I've been told to work on my confidence. What do you do to work on confidence? What's like the first thing you do?
I mean, we already went into this, but I teach people how to use their feet better.
Okay.
Right, getting back into the dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. Because I think that, you know, to me, I mean, what really helped me out a lot was things like Nordic hamstring curls, things that really made it so I could build up my hip and my glute. Because when I ran, I just basically like pumped my arms fast and just ran. Like it wasn't a big concept. So then once I got more into pulling, like that concept of pulling, that helped me a lot understand, you know, where to go. So I use pulling a lot because I think that helped me in being able to then transition off and improve my front side mechanics. So that was all like here, really fast, right? And then once I got the understanding of pulling and getting that foot up and through, that made a big difference, okay? And then what got me into a whole nother level of speed is when I figured out how to use my foot to pull, okay? Because if I'm here and I'm in dorsiflexion and I just pull, I get a certain level of strength. But when I pull with my toe, I get a different level of contact with the ground, which then makes it so I can toe off the ground. Now, what's difficult with that is, and what I found, you know, using on the treadmill and doing the different sprint stuff is, there's so much that goes into, and I want to talk about the drive phase as well, on the particular sprint, how you start, how you go through your drive phase has such a huge impact on what you do at your top end. And as the more you can get into the details of it, the more you feel like, you know, that one, beautiful, perfect, right? And that's when Usain Bolt runs 9.5, right? Fred Curley runs 9.7. Concept of being able to put everything together so you can get into that top speed, and do that as often as possible, right? Because what I was saying is like the reason that Lamont Jacobs is practicing on his start, and Elaine Thompson and Trayvon Bromell, and you know, Trayvon Bromell to me right now has the best start in the world, right? That doesn't mean that he's like, all right, I got it, like now I need to work on something else, you know, because I think everybody needs to continually work on it, and that work that you put in makes it so you can get the same output every time. So, you know, I can have great runs, and you know, it feels great, but I can't do that 8 out of 10 times. You know, and so trying to get more into that, I think ends up being an important part of running great 40s, right? Great hundreds, like being those elite level guys, right? Because you can run 4.4, 4.5, and I don't want to take away like, you know, that isn't special, but that's something that is not super hard to get to when you get the mechanics down and understand it. But getting into 4.2, 4.3, that's special, but that's also something that you have to be able to do, you know, or get people to be able to do a lot of times, in my opinion, to then make it so it's like, okay, that's that elite level speed, you know? So, yeah, I know that was a long tangent. We're getting into the 3 steps, but we need to be able to understand, like, that these 3-4 steps, as much, or you know, step 3 and 4, as important or more important to me as step 20 on a 40 than, you know, that, you know. So you got to get the step 3, 4 down.
So that I actually like that you went on the tangent, because this kind of makes what I'm about to talk about like make more sense too. So one of the big things that we talk about, like me, Coach Hank, and Gary Barr, is the wheels are turning, right? And you started this conversation like, I always accelerate left, right? I've always accelerated left. But when I start to get into drive and top end, nothing can shift. So the biggest thing I would tell you is, don't look at them as 3 different phases. You're starting the wheels, you're getting them to spin more, and then you're really getting them to spin, right? And I just did it in 3 phases. But again, just trying to find a common ground with you guys. I got 3 through that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It's we're getting the wheels to turn. He made a comment in the garage when I did these switches, right? He's like, yeah, you're really low. You're really low, right? That's the small wheel. That's a medium wheel. And then that's a big wheel. So we're trying to hit these positions as we climb up, essentially, right? What do you do with your torso as you go into drive and hop?
Yeah, so and I know we went back and forth on this on some of the differences.
Yeah.
I don't think as much about the torso. I don't cue the torso as much because I want the hips to be free and I want the hips to rise, right? And so if you are more comfortable here with your torso or here or here, like there's different ways people want to end up being. There's different ranges of motion between different vertebrae. So I don't like to get too much into that because there's so much in that spine.
Right.
But the thing that I am wanting you to be able to do is get those hips extended, right? So don't be here, okay? We want to be getting those hips through and then get them up, because when people start to stay down and they're trying to get into their more top end speed and their hips are staying down, they just end up not getting anywhere. So we want to be able to get our hips through so then we can get leg extension when we're landing, okay, as much leg extension as possible when we're landing, right? So that means my knee is extended as possible and my hips as extended as possible to then make it so then I can get into a good upright posture during sprinting. So that's what my goal is to be able to get people to get to here as fast as possible.
Perfect. So what I would say with that is, and I've actually, like Usain Bolt, fastest person ever.
Yeah.
He talks about it. As soon as your torso pulls back, that's when you slow down.
Yeah.
So that's one of the common things that we've been taught, right? You go on the top end, you're pulling up here. He literally is on an interview like, I pull back, I'm slowing down. So that's one of the big things is don't let the torso come up. You want to keep the lean as long as you can. If you keep forcing hip extension on the back end, it's going to rise to where it wants to rise naturally, okay? So before we go into drive phase here, I want to first set him up in a start.
Okay.
Okay? And we want to get that first step down quick. Because one of the things that he voiced to me is like third or fourth step is when it starts to fall apart, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you think third or fourth step is when it starts to fall apart?
I mean, to keep it simple, I don't know. Right? Like that's why I say that it's falling apart is because I don't know, because I understand the first step, I understand the second step.
Yeah.
Theories, I can rattle off a ton of different theories.
Yeah.
I don't know though.
Okay, so my theory is that one of those two steps is too big. Because you got to get
too big, like too far out.
Exactly.
Okay.
Too far out in front of the center, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If you do that, then you're constantly trying to catch up to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So biggest thing, I'm trying to think about my hips staying underneath me here, right?
Yeah.
So let's get into that starting position,
Okay.
but I'm going to anchor you in a little bit more.
Okay.
Because you talked about pulling the back leg, which I like. I use that cue.
Yeah.
But I'm going to show you how to shorten the step.
So do you want me to get all the way into the third?
Yeah, get into your three-point stance.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm gonna go into because we already made some adjustments here, right? So I'm gonna go back into what my kind of original is, and so you can kind of go through some of the cues that we went through before, so then we can go over why that is working and why you get some of those cues.
I actually like that because I'm actually not going to give him what we did before right now. I'm going to put him on the spot here to try something different.
Yeah.
Okay, so in his stance, this VMO right here, this muscle right inside your knee, I want you to squeeze that as hard as you can. Sorry, let's reverse that so you can see. Pinky toe out.
Okay.
Now squeeze that VMO as hard as you can.
Okay.
Okay, now you're going to keep this squeezed.
Okay.
And then you're going to pull the back leg through.
Okay.
Yep. That got down super quick.
Yeah.
How did it feel?
Oh, good.
Felt good?
Yeah.
Okay, so now second, third, fourth.
Yeah.
What do you think the next thing I would tell you to do?
I mean, continue that, I would say. I mean, but
that's literally it.
Yeah.
So what is continuing it? So this is what I would add the layer to. So I told you to anchor your front leg in. So pinky toe out, VMO squeeze down.
Yeah.
If you had a hard time squeezing that as well, that's something to address in the later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So drop into it. The last cue I gave you was pull your back leg.
So why?
What's
Why is the squeezing of the VMO really important?
That is the anchor that sends the torso over the top.
Okay.
So when we're looking,
Isn't that big in the last like 15 degrees of extension though?
say that again.
Like the activation of the VMO.
Yeah.
Isn't that the primary activator in the last 15 degrees of extension? Or I mean, I don't
If
know.
I told you I knew that exact number,
Yeah.
like, I'd be
So
like,
that was a big thing with Dari.
Yeah.
Right. So like they
Yeah.
talked about when you're more at 90 degrees,
Yeah.
you're going to get more lateral.
Yeah.
As we get into closer to 45, you're going to get more
Yeah.
intermedius, rectus femoris as the primary action, and
Yeah.
then as you get into the last 15, you're going to get more VMO action.
So what else hits VMO? And there's a very popular sensation that's out there right now that's training VMO.
I don't know.
Knees over toes guy.
Okay, news over.
So yeah, and what is the one big premise of bar running? It's squatting on your legs.
Okay.
So what we're looking at here is he's in dorsiflexion. So like we want to argue, is this a hinge? Is this a squat? Whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We look at it as base position, so that track position that we all see, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where it's kind of blends. But the squat, you're low here. You're not up here, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about down, low contraction. Really what it's doing is it's just anchoring you here, so
Yeah.
you can take the torso over the top,
Okay.
right? The torso over the top is what creates that up and over kind of wheels turning kind of action. That gets the shin to fall,
Okay.
and then quick turnover after that, basically.
Okay. So, I'll try it.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any other thing you're going to get into. I know I kind of interrupted you there.
Yeah, so the only thing was, so the last cue I gave you was after you anchored that
Yeah.
there,
Keep that.
I told you to bring your back leg through.
Yeah.
So now back leg through for the next 4 steps.
Okay. So I'm here with my toe. Is there any type of thing you say with like extension here beforehand? Do you like this being more bent or do you like it being more extended?
I like to get as bent as possible.
Really?
Yeah.
I like more extension.
Yeah. Well, and so that's a
Whole nother
that's a
debate.
body type argument
Okay,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'll go and just do this and then we'll go here. So main two I'm thinking about, so I'm squeezed here,
Yep.
right? And then what do I want to think about with that back foot again?
It's just pulling through. It's pulling, not pushing. And then as soon as the next foot gets down, it's pulling through. And then it's pulling through. It's just
Okay.
pulling through over and over. Oh yeah. Your turn. I mean, I haven't seen you run in years, but your turnover looked fast there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always in the data, so I mean, it didn't feel bad.
Yeah. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Anything feel off?
No, nothing fell off. It felt good. You know, definitely didn't feel bad. I don't know if there's anything that felt like I didn't do great there. I didn't get to 5 yards on my 4th step, but
What'd you get to?
I don't know, like 4.5 maybe.
Okay. So you want it to be longer?
Well, it's not that I want you to be longer. So I look at that, and this is a big thing that I talk about with this is like, I don't want you to get to 4 yards and 5 steps by reaching.
Okay.
I want you to get to four yards and 5 steps because you're generating so much force into the ground that you're propelling yourself forward.
Okay, so let me ask you this too then. So like 4 steps and 5 yards, you want Tyreek Hill and DK Metcalf to do the same thing?
No, obviously
That's kinda
not.
where I
Yeah.
would go there.
So the concept is, you know, we want to be able to create some degree of, you know, what's correct, what's incorrect. Right. And
yeah.
so the taller you go, the further you almost need to be able to get. Right. But like, I mean, obviously, like if you're 5'8", 5'9", you can live with being a little bit behind it.
Yeah.
Right. Because they have just hard enough time just getting to, you know, past 4.
Right.
In between like 4 to 4.5 around there is
Right.
really when you're a little bit shorter. And then when you're 6'3", 6'4", right now that's when you want to be getting into 5, 5.5.
Yeah.
Within those first few steps. So there's going to be variability with it.
Right, for
you know,
sure.
So, but I just see that ends up being a big thing for, you know, the average person is between 5'10" and 6'2".
Right.
And
Yeah.
a lot of times people struggle with
Yeah.
4 yards or 4 steps and 5 yards.
Yeah. I think the biggest reason why I like, whether it's something that's going to work or not, my whole thing is when we're training at high speeds, it's really hard to sequence that. Like, hey, I got to get this foot down before I get to that line. That's why everything that I've been giving you today is how can I get you off the ground quicker, right? Like how can, and you talk about internal rotation off one foot, clearing external rotation off the opposite foot. That's a lot of things to think at a high speed, right?
100%.
So how do we get you to execute those techniques that we're talking about, which are correct, but at high speed and get it to be repeatable?
Yeah.
And that's where like this drilling I've had a lot of success with, really.
Yeah.
And it's just, the more we think about trying to hit a specific spot in space, I really think that that can trip people up rather than letting yourself kind of naturally feel what it's supposed to do, if that makes sense. So I don't know what I would cue you from there, but literally just this, as we go into this drive phase, it's just getting them to continually go bigger, right?
Yeah. So now we want to go into, because we're getting out of time, and I figured this was going to end up happening. Good thing we didn't try to go into, top end speed at all. I guess we touched on it a little bit, but we mostly went into the start and spent a solid hour at least just talking only about the start.
Yep.
And I want to get a little bit into the drive phase because I think that has the most amount of difference. So we'll get a little bit into drive phase. Maybe we do another one of these sometime in the future. But let's talk drive phase. All right. So we're looking from the front and the side. It's going to be Marcel Jacobs here. So to me, how I define it, just because I like to add definitions to things, is that the first 3 steps are like more start phase.
Yep.
Then from 3 to different for everybody. Somewhere between 12 and 20 is going to be drive phase steps, right? So and after that we're going to drive phase, and then we're in top end speed from there then on.
Perfect.
Okay. So we're going into, this is the 3rd step. We're transitioning into the 4th step. What are we looking to see here?
Okay, so as we look into that, the first thing I want to do is circle right here. Okay, are we extended or are we not?
Not.
We're not extended.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So that right there, it goes against most of what we've been taught, right?
Mhm.
We're triple extending right off the start. This is the world record holder currently, correct?
He's a gold medalist.
Gold medalist.
Yeah,
Sorry, gold medalist.
Yeah.
Not Usain Bolt. Sorry.
Yeah.
But Usain Bolt does the same exact thing. Okay.
Mhm.
So all we're trying to do here in this drive phase is continue staying leaned, right? Like if you look at his shoulders, they're not rising yet. Mm-hmm. His knee is coming up to meet his shoulders as he goes through that drive phase. Okay.
Okay, so this is step 5 here.
Step 5, okay, still not triple extended.
Yeah.
And into the next one, okay. Okay, and then if you look at his feet, pause that one. Let's talk about that right there because we talked about that earlier. What's that foot? What position is that?
In terms of external rotation,
Yep.
plantar flexion,
Yep.
so yeah, he's slightly externally rotated.
Yep.
And to me, I would say he's more pronated
Yep.
at foot contact.
Yep. And so pronated, what is that we talked about earlier today, right?
Yeah,
The inside edge.
Yeah, and the big toe down.
Right. So one of the big takeaways I see as I'm looking at is all of a sudden he starts externally rotating a little bit here. That is creating space as he kind of goes into top end here. And when he goes into top end, he's not pulling up. If you look at his torso, it's just going to gradually just climb a little bit more and then it's going to stop there. But the feet really aren't doing a whole lot.
Of different actions, exactly, yeah.
It's
one of the things we kind of talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
But what is changing is the height of the foot in backside.
Yep.
And so how do you coach that?
I coach going back to controlling the fall. I don't know if we talked about on this talk, but we talked about it before we got into the audio here. Mm-hmm. Running is controlling your ability to fall flat on your face. That's one of the biggest concepts of bar running as well.
And I will say, I don't love that.
You don't love that?
No, I don't.
Why don't you love that?
Because I think that the center of mass should be balanced. I don't like forward. I think it should be balanced. I think it should be.
I agree with that statement. Though.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
what can you see why I agree with that statement?
I mean, potentially that's just again like I'm trying to be very particular with my language and my wording.
For sure.
So forward to me is off balance.
Right.
I'm forward, right? I'm not balanced, I'm forward.
right? Or if I'm back, I'm also not balanced, I'm back.
Right.
You know, I want to be balanced. I want to be middle, medial, you know, like everything pointing towards there. So that's why I said that. I don't know if going forward, I guess when you're moving, I get it. So it's because you're moving forward.
Right.
And so if you're moving forward, you're balanced because that's, you know, your weight should be forward, you're moving forward, it's all forward.
And what's your strongest muscle in your body?
That's
a trick question.
Glute, tongue,
brain, right? So we're going, whether it's muscle or not, it's the
Yeah.
most powerful thing in your body,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So what it is like, no, I don't want you actually to have your center out in front of you.
Yeah.
But when you push this here, what do you think your back foot does?
It
Pulls up.
Yeah.
Because your brain protected you.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and that's exactly why I don't love it, is because when you're going out of the start, when you're here, this
Yep.
is what I try to get people to avoid.
Right. And then what
I want this, not this.
Right. So what was my intervention for that though?
Is just to be able to, I mean, you just talked about just pulling and switching.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes back to at the end of the day. I'm just going to go back to, okay, we need a quicker switch of the feet underneath me so that foot doesn't get stuck behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how like I don't necessarily go into 1, 2, 3 phase. I just try to keep the same rhythm the whole way through.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, but that ends up being the thing is, I mean, it makes sense to me because I am, you know, exposed to it all the time.
Right.
You know, so I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that will, you know, if or how it'll connect with people. But I guess we'll see. Let us know in the comments.
That is the journey right now, for sure.
Yeah,
That is the journey. That's why there's so much confliction with all this. But
yeah. I mean, I think that's good. How do people, you know, reach out to you? How do they find you if they want to be able to, you know, find more, follow some of your stuff? I know you post on Instagram.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'll have Morey drop my tag in the comments. I just started putting more work out there. I'm gonna be dropping a strength program to kind of make you durable for some of these techniques. As far as speed goes, follow Coach Matt Hank. He's got the speed programs that can kind of go into details with it. Bar running, obviously, I mentioned all that kind of stuff. So definitely those 3 pages are if you found any value today, that's where you want to go. You can hit me up, DM, I'll answer any of your questions if you have any questions. We also, myself and Coach Hank, started a podcast ourselves a couple weeks ago. So if you follow us on IG, you'll see those posts coming out.
love it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out. That's great.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, of course.